and we're the best at it. We're the best at trying to
Donald Trump's our president.
Black women are one of the most educated demographics in this country and one of the least.
What Elon Musk is doing is being directly felt by the American people. But give it 6 weeks.
It's starting to be.
Yes.
I mean,
3 liberal fantasies, 1 conservative wrecking ball. Let's dissect CNN's woke math, race-baiting tears, and swamp protection meltdowns. First up, CNN's DEI sob story. Fairfax County blew $400,000 on a DEI office while 69% of black 4th graders can't read. But hey, who needs literacy when you've got woke administrators, right? Let's watch the meltdown.
a cabinet that has perhaps more Fox hosts than people who
you know what makes them
people of
qualified?
color.
Yes. No, don't do it. Let her finish.
And I would just ask, Scott, if race is not the issue, then why is DEI mentioned every
5
single day as a solution to every single problem that faces this
Because of how pervasive it is,
but do you
and
think
how
it's
hateful
really
it is
true?
to an actual conservative ideological view.
But do you think it is true that all of America's ills, from the plane crash to whatever it is, wildfires, due to DEI for real?
I think that if you believe in the fundamental principle of America, which is that we guarantee everybody an equal chance, not an equal outcome, but an equal chance, then trying to go around that principle, conservatives don't believe in it. And most people who believe in America don't believe in it, number one. Number two, the concept of not hiring the best person for the job in government or anywhere else has been repeatedly rejected by the American people, the Supreme Court, and everything else. And so
what do you get? So I guess what I'm saying is, like, if that is the case, then people are questioning the actual qualifications of many people Donald Trump hired for jobs.
Yeah.
So do you think that he actually?
Why?
Because Elon Musk doesn't even go here.
Do you think that he?
That's why.
This is the question people are asking. This is the question that Ryan Clark just asked. Did Donald Trump, for Health and Human Services, find the person with the best expertise to address those issues? When it comes to the Department of Defense, did he find the person with the best expertise to address those issues, or did he just find people who he liked?
Political appointees have one qualification. They serve at the pleasure of the president because the president believes that person's going to best carry out their agenda. That is the only qualification.
And to protect and defend the Constitution.
And that is the only. That's the only qualification for a political appointee.
Competency doesn't matter.
Of course, they're competent. Of course, he believes they're competent. If he didn't believe they were competent, he wouldn't appoint them.
You're not being fair with that. You're not being fair with that response. She asked you a very simple question: yes or no. Look at the appointees. Do you believe DEI had anything to do with those appointees? Do you believe they were qualified? Do you think they would protect and defend the Constitution that represents all of the people of the United States of America?
I think Mark Rubio.
I think you all have literally no idea how the government works, is what I actually
do. I do. At a higher level than anyone here.
A couple people at this table have served in the government.
Yeah, me too.
Including for this former president.
I just want to say that I think the premise that DEI exists and therefore the people that got the opportunity, perhaps because of DEI, are not qualified is a flawed premise.
Correct.
And I think that is what is so frustrating about the argument around DEI. We know in this country historically, and even today, there are still injustices in this country based on race, based on gender, based on ideology.
Based on who your daddy played
golf with. Yes.
Okay, that happens every single day. We know that.
But it happens every single day all over the planet.
That's
the
what I'm
planet Earth. It is human nature. It is human. Every single, and we're the best at it. We're the best at trying to
Donald Trump's our president.
Arthur, I guess that's exactly my point. I agree with you. I think that it is true that there have been preferences not for merit since the dawn of time, and that in this country right now, the same people who are going after DEI, which is about giving opportunities to people who have been historically marginalized, are just as willing to hire their friends.
Is that what equity means? Giving opportunity or guaranteeing outcomes?
No, it's giving access.
Because that's what equity means.
It's
a difference. There's a difference between equality and equity.
No, it's giving access.
I just want to answer his question because I think
Wouldn't
this is
talent
super,
and hard work give
Scott,
you
I think this
access?
is incredibly important for you to understand and for everybody to understand at home, okay? This is where I think we go crossways on this issue. You just asked the question, what does equity mean? Does it mean equality or does it mean access to opportunities? And conservatives want to define it a particular way, but you have to acknowledge, I'm asking you to acknowledge that people who believe in DEI do not define it that way. They do not define it as equality.
I think they define it as trying to guarantee outcomes, and I think they define it as trying to punish people they don't like.
Scott, that's
wrong race, wrong
Speaking from more of the middle of the country who's not hyper-partisan on this issue, I think that people generally think diversity is a virtue. It makes businesses better. It makes institutions better. But they also don't like when you have companies or organizations that are spending huge amounts of money to stand up DEI office. As an example, Fairfax County Public Schools, $400,000 dollars spent on a DEI office, but kids are not reading at the levels that they should. They're not advancing at the levels that they should. It's not the issue
But were
of
they
diversity.
doing that before the office was stood up?
Well, no, and probably not. And so I'm not saying that connection.
So maybe implementing DEI might
No,
actually help people
but it's
have
not
a
an
better
argument
education
against
outcome.
DEI. It's how much of our resources are we actually putting.
But that's
to it.
that's not the way the conversation is being posed in America today. The conversation about DEI and woke and all of that sounds about marginalized Black and brown people who already are threatened seem to be threatened in this community, in this society, and they're not getting the same opportunities. It was the same thing with affirmative action. Went to UCLA, they got rid of affirmative action. Everyone said you got in because of affirmative action. When I graduated, affirmative action didn't take my test. Affirmative action didn't help me get to where I'm at today. It gave me access that I didn't have based on the opportunity that I lacked because of the circumstances I was born into, which had nothing to do with me, but the country in which we live in. So the reality is—
Have you seen the test scores of UCLA Medical, by the way?
My point being, Scott, is that everyone doesn't have the same access. People like to hire their friends. They like to hire the people that they like to be around.
Do you think they like to
But I
hire the
also
best people
do
for the
think,
job?
but I also think
Folks,
around
here's
the
the
idea of
kicker.
diversity.
No,
While
I hire all
CNN
his
cries
friends.
systemic racism, Fairfax County's math proficiency dropped 12% after that DEI office opened. But sure, let's blame white supremacy instead of $400,000 wasted on buzzwords. Smash that like button if you'd rather fund phonics than DEI consultants. Subscribe. The truth train's just leaving the station. Next lie, Black women are the most educated. Reality check. Asian women hold 22% of advanced degrees versus 7% for Black women. Median income? $98,400 versus $52,300. But CNN won't mention Asian work ethic or two-parent households. Let's watch the denial.
The issue in this country right now is we live in different realities.
That's right.
I live in a reality where I know I do not have the same opportunity as you. I know I don't.
And you know
and
that
I know
too.
what, Scott?
I got-
And you know that.
Let me just tell you about me.
I'm gonna let you finish, but I want to answer this.
I'm not talking about how you feel. I'm talking about how I feel. Me, a Black woman in this country.
But not in this city.
And I will run. And if you
Look,
want
I'm
me
a
to,
New Yorker, not in
I
this
will
city.
run
You
the
cannot say
facts.
that. You
I
can't
will
say that
run.
in this city. I have a.
I'm not talking about New York. I'm talking about Ashley
let her finish.
Allison
Okay,
right
let her
here.
finish. Let her
I got a law degree, a master's, and 2 bachelors. Probably more education than all y'all added up together at this table,
Fine
right?
by me.
And I have always been the least paid person on payroll at every institution I have worked in. And it's not
Even
because
in the White House?
even in the White House.
Well, whose fault is that? I don't think you worked for George W. or
Well,
Trump.
guess what happened when I was there? DEI.
Scott.
Look,
I'm head, Scott.
Look,
No,
you're my friend. I respect you tremendously. I think you're probably the smartest operative in the Democratic Party, and they should listen to you more. That's number one. Number two, you and I share a comparable background. We're both from the Midwest. We both come from middle-class families, lower middle-class families maybe. I actually think we share a lot of similarities in our journey. But I think you made it, and you are the most respected voice often at every room or every table you're in, not because of anything other than your talent and your work ethic. And that's all anybody ever is asking for, is for people with talent and work ethic to make it. And that's what I see in you. That's how I see you.
But let me tell you something about my story and my family's story is that we have faced discrimination. I have faced discrimination. I just said I was the least paid person, even in this moment sometimes, to my counterparts. It is just the reality of the country we live in. And I'm not saying, I do believe I'm qualified. I know I'm qualified. You won't ever tell me I'm not qualified. But the system that I live in doesn't matter about my qualifications.
I don't agree
think we're
because
there
I,
in
when I
2025.
Oh, come
I don't think
on.
we're there in
Come
2025.
on.
You can't deny
That's just not
say
true.
that. That's just not true.
There's,
I don't know.
there's a mountain of evidence that suggests that you are wrong. Okay, let's just
Again,
take Ashley.
I'm a New
let's
Yorker,
just-
so I'm jaded. I am
Okay.
the Attorney General is a
I'm
Black
not-
woman.
okay,
The
we
mayor's
just
a
went-
Black
we just
man.
went
The
from-
head of the Senate is a
we
Black
just-
woman.
New York is a small
Okay.
representation.
Well, small. New
United
York is not
States
that
of
small.
America.
Politics. Let me talk about
Every judge I
numbers.
appear before
Because
is either a
Ashley
woman
just
or a
gave-
person of
Ashley
color.
just gave an anecdote, but the numbers also show Black women are one of the most educated demographics in this country and one of the least paid. Why would that make any sense?
Why would that make any sense? And don't talk to me about the judges you stand before. Talk to
Why?
me about the theory.
Hold on.
Talk to me about the
But it
world in which
also-
we live in. And
Let's
the
look at the
system that
United
we live
States
in.
Supreme Court. How could you say we're not going to look at that from the top to the bottom? And I'm talking about the
okay,
legal
New
system.
York is a more
that I live in.
progressive
And we
state.
just got a Black woman.
Hold up. Let me.
We just got a Black woman on
Okay,
the
but you had a
board.
Black man from
You brought
the
up
70s.
You brought up the Supreme
Or
Court.
the 60s.
One.
Did you know, Arthur? That there are
Hold on. What percentage of it does it represent the United States of America?
Why does it matter? matter.
Why
So we
is it
gotta go by
so-
numbers.
one at a
Why
time.
is it-
but
why
you
is
just-
it so
so
hard?
we gotta-
one
we
at
can
a
only
one at a
acknowledge
time,
what
please.
she just said.
We
Why
can't
is it
have
so
30%
hard?
Why is it just one?
of justice.
Why is there only one Italian
No,
American?
but why is
Why?
it so hard for you to acknowledge what she just said about
didn't-
black
I
women
did-
being the most educated
I
and
did
the most
acknowledge it.
underpaid?
I said that's
And
not
you-
my experience.
Okay,
If that
but
was
we're
the case,
because
we'd
you're
have
not a
more
black
black women on
woman.
this
No,
Right.
I'm a
But
New
New-
Yorker, and
but
that's
New
not
York
the
is
way
not
it is in New
representative
York.
of the rest
You're
of America.
correct.
That's
You are
also
correct.
It's also the
important.
most diversity in the country.
Well, that's exactly.
Like,
So of
why
course
wouldn't
there's
it
more
be? I think it's a
representation
little
in
more
women are
representative.
And Scott, I think if you really see you said something very beautiful. This is your friend. You guys share a lot of the same values. You guys think alike. You guys are literally friends off air. You text. You have good conversations. There is the yes and in that. There is something that says to me that you know what she's saying is true. You think she's smart. You know that she's smart. She's more educated than mostly everyone at this table. And so what she's saying isn't a lie. What she's saying is a real life experience. And so why is it so hard to understand why something like diversity, equity, inclusion needs to be a part of what we do in a system that never even acknowledged a group of people, never saw us as a human commodity, just literally never noticed who we were. And now here we are years later asking for some simple rights, some simple civility. She's asking to be paid like you get paid. She's asking to be acknowledged like you get acknowledged. And she knows that that is not the case because she is a black woman.
She had a high-ranking position in the
Hey,
White House of
dear
the United
friend,
States of America.
Dear friend,
she
there
is one of
are-
the most
dear-
celebrated political operatives
let's
in the
talk
country.
about- Do
you know how hard I had to work to get that?
Do you know
But
how
we all
hard?
have
Do
to
you know?
work
You
hard.
know
Yeah,
how
all
hard
that
the son
work
of a
to get
garbage
through law
man had to
school?
work at it? So I'm just telling you.
I'm not saying that, but
talent and work
We're
ethic
not
are
saying
everything,
we're
and that's
not,
why I think
it's
you're
not
here.
true. It's just not true.
So
It's just
look,
not true.
the other thing is the access to opportunity is. I know you don't want to think that that is true, but access to opportunity is
And
what
that's the word.
DEI is supposed to address. And not just when it comes to race, although race is important, but when it comes to women, when it comes to people with disabilities, when it comes to people from different socioeconomic brackets, from rural parts of the country.
I think that's
and
the
other-
biggest issue. There's different socioeconomic
now-
brackets
So now
more
we're
than
trying
race
to
and
say,
gender.
now we're trying to say that everything is equal just because I say it is, even though all the evidence.
Who said everything is equal?
Well, that's literally
said the
we're
same
like
thing is
we're already living in a meritocratic society, is what Scott and his colleagues want to say, when that's actually factually not true.
do you not
Actually,
think
it's
everything
not
is
true.
But I
equal?
think it's
I don't
generally.
think everything-
I think
of course
it's
not.
generally
then
true.
what- so actually,
But I think
okay,
it
so
should.
let's talk-
It'll seek its own level. I don't think the government should be telling us to
Arthur,
seek
okay,
its
but
own
you
level.
DEI is
literally
not
earlier
about, hold on,
just said-
DEI is not about the government. Y'all are talking to private companies
Yes.
and telling them you can't
Can't do
operate
it. It's
about both.
the way you
I
want to
think, but
operate.
Arthur, you
It is
literally
about
just said, I don't think it will seek itself out because you literally just said human nature. That's how we operate. So
right.
sometimes,
Yes,
which is why the
but I
civil
think
rights
it's more
movement was
I
so
think it's more
important.
socioeconomic
Because- and
than
this
it
is this
is
is why, like, when they
racial.
talk about like canceling the Department of Education, why they talk about the federal government. The reason why the federal government was so important, particularly for Black people to seek justice in this country, is because it was the one bastion of hope that people had when states took control and they had discriminatory practice laws.
Okay, but
the
that was a long
Supreme
time
Court.
ago now.
What? How long ago? Tell me how long ago was that?
That was a
How
long
long
time
ago was that?
We gotta go. We gotta go, but it was not that long ago.
I know.
It was,
It's
okay, it was not that long ago.
Yeah, it's
It was
so
in
long
Ashley's
ago.
father's lifetime. It was in
prepped
my
to
parents'
talk about
lifetime.
Newsflash, 71% of Black college grads are women. Equal opportunities alive and well. But CNN would rather cry oppression than admit Asian families prioritize homework over hashtags. Share this clip if you're tired of the victimhood Olympics. Final lie, Elon Musk is dangerous. Reality? Trump unleashed him to expose $2.1 trillion in debt waste and 214 redundant programs. But CNN's clutching pearls over transparency. Let's watch the panic.
It's not illegal, but it's not wise. And the reason is you have a vetting process that's supposed to happen. And the purpose is to make sure that the people who have access to the information can be trusted. I don't know why Elon Musk is being trusted so much to police himself. Just because you have money doesn't mean you can't do anything that's bad for our country. So there has to be some kind of vetting process that happens. I don't know if we can say he should, that it's illegal because he's acting as an advisor, right? He's not an official federal capacity, or he doesn't have a position.
He's
so
got
he's an advisor.
he's a special government employee, which is sort of almost like a little
It's a
bit
quasi.
of
It's a gray
in between
area.
both.
But it's one of those things that it's going to get thing by thing tested one by one. It's going to be a very slow process to find out what is happening and whether any of it actually passes legal muster, because there are rules that Congress has set actually at some point about how the government works, about who's supposed to have access to what, and about what the roles of federal employees are.
Well, I mean, I would love someone to come to my law firm and look at where the waste is and how it can function more smoothly. And as a law firm, you're in a little bit of a unique position. But when you're involved with the Treasury Department, you're also in a unique position. I got to be honest with you, Abby. if I had an Elon Musk type come into my little law firm, I would have them sign some kind of a non-disclosure form, a confidentiality form. It's just good practice. I'm not saying he would have to go through, Senate clearance, but there's got to be some degree of a checks and balances. I don't buy the fact that he's looking to enrich himself. The guy's worth $500 billion. I mean, at some point, every human being is saturated.
There are
So I don't think
definitely conflicts of interest. I mean, that's not debatable. He has government contracts. He has competitors who have government contracts who he wants to box out. I mean, the conflicts are there.
Well, we're in a very legally gray area. A lot of this comes down to, as you said, do the enforcement mechanisms, Congress, for example, or the courts actually have the ability to step in and do they need to? Like the power of the purse being in Congress, many of these programs that are being slashed and that there hasn't actually, that have been appropriated by Congress, if nobody's enforcing and stepping up to challenge that, I don't know that that's actually going to matter. In the courts, we've seen them step in briefly with the federal aid freeze, but I don't suspect that they're going to go line items through by through everything that he's come in and cut or decided to streamline. So and there is something to, there's wisdom in the Trump administration by the lack of transparency around it. I don't know that people would know where to begin if they're trying to be outside watchdogs on what is being cut.
So not illegal, not illegal. You don't like the politics of it. I'll give you the other side. This is radical transparency on these USAID grants and other parts of the government that typically operate in an opaque fashion. And plenty of law degrees here. I'll give you the political view. The American people elected Donald Trump because they thought he was going to be a sledgehammer against this government and against the out-of-control bureaucracy, and Elon Musk is the instrument of the destruction. And there is nothing bad about the politics of this right now, about going through the government and reporting to the American people, did you know your money's going here? Did you know your money's going there? It's all upside for Trump.
Reproach where he shouldn't even be questioned about.
He's questioned by his boss, the President of the United States.
Is he?
Yeah.
No, but they don't even know what he's doing.
Yeah,
That's the problem.
Trump said he would have authorization to do
Here's
what
what
he
the New
needed
York
to do.
Times is reporting. One Trump official who was not authorized to speak publicly said, Mr. Musk was widely seen as operating with a level of autonomy that almost no one can control.
I think
there's pretty much no one that you can say that about.
Yes,
No
right.
one.
Nor should you, which is right. Nor should you. I think I hear you. Transparency. Donald Trump won the election. I can acknowledge that. What I think people are not connecting the dots on is the trickle down effect of, y'all love trickle down, right? Of how this happens. You close a government agency, people lose their jobs. That impacts their employment, whether they can feed themselves. That agency funds nonprofits abroad, but also domestic. Those people can't then do their job. That affects people in those states, red states and blue states, the people that those nonprofits help. That I don't think is what the American people actually signed up for. And I think that it's early. It's still, 15 days in? It's 3 weeks in. And so I don't think the impact of what Elon Musk is doing is being directly felt by the American people. But give it 6 weeks.
It's starting to be. I mean, there was a report out of Virginia, community health centers were shutting down because their funding stopped. No one can seem to explain why that is, but it's because basically Elon Musk has said for a wide swath of the government, just turn the whole thing off.
I think that Scott is right on the politics in this moment, but I would completely disagree that there's transparency. The White House should come out and simply list, these are the programs that are being slashed. This is the amount, this is what they serve, this is why they're duplicative or unnecessary or waste and fraudulent and abusive. They're not showing us that. So I have friends who've been laid off in USAID in India. They don't know why. They don't know if their mission's being shuttered or if it's being streamlined and folded into the State Department. These are things I think it would really benefit the Trump White House. Put out some fact sheets, explain what you're doing.
They don't want to,
because it's generally
they don't want to. That's why they did the federal freezing of funds the way they did, is because Bannon said this from the beginning. This is a strategy. This is their political strategy.
But they have the right to have that strategy. I agree
But
with
throw
Scott.
it-
You're getting
throw
a
it-
lot
throw
of
it.
kudos today. We agree with you on a policy. Trump has the right to set his policy and decide what's important, where he wants to slash. But to have somebody just running around the government that hasn't been vetted, hasn't went through any clearance or anything like that, and they have access to everyone's information, to things they shouldn't have access to, there has to be some oversight of Elon Musk.
One of the other things we're learning this week, this is according to the New York Times, the CIA sent the White House an unclassified email with the names of some employees. This sounds mundane, I guess, but it's the CIA, and some of those employees are doing sensitive jobs. Some of those employees are targeted by foreign governments. Why?
I don't know. I mean, I hope they're following all the safety and security protocols for the people that are in the clandestine service. I think at some juncture, though, you all have to realize that nobody in the United States feels like anybody could give them a full accounting of where all this money goes. We're $30-something trillion in debt. We spend more money than we bring in. this has been going on and on for years. Both parties say they're going to do something about it, and then we meet about it, and we have committees, and we fight about it, and we have election, and no one ever does anything. And then Trump shows up and unleashes Elon Musk on the federal government. And finally, people are like, well, maybe if we break a few eggs, we might turn up a few omelets here. And I just think the politics of this are going to give them a lot of leash in Washington, because they're going to end up turning over things that everyone's going to agree, oh yeah, that was really
But Elon
stupid.
Musk also doesn't know where those $1 trillion. Like, that's the thing, is like, if you are in charge of
But
something,
he's supposed to be finding out, right?
But
Isn't
he's
that
not.
his job?
But he's
Well, how do we
not.
know what he's doing 2 weeks in? And by the way,
We don't.
I'm having
That's-
deja vu. Didn't we do this with Jared Kushner 8 years ago? Wasn't he in the Oval Office? Wasn't he
Yeah, but
doing all
he
that? He had
wasn't
no
doing
security.
anything.
Jared
He
wasn't
had
doing
no-
anything like this,
he
to
didn't-
be clear.
anything like
Jared
that.
was a colleague. He was very clear what he was
Listen,
doing.
I'm a Jared fan, but he was sitting in the White House next to the President of the United States. He was in the thick of it with no clearance whatsoever, at least initially.
But keep in mind, right now we're talking about USAID, which we all care about. The average American doesn't know what it is, doesn't care what the mission is, whether they should or shouldn't. When this becomes the Department of Education or Health and Human Services, and it could impact goods, services, and day-to-day things Americans care about, then
Let's
they're
break
gonna
down
want more of an
Trump's
accounting
three-step
of what is
playbook
being
that's got
slashed and why.
DC sweating. 1. Find waste, like the $400,000 DEI office that left kids illiterate while hiring equity consultants. 2. Expose waste. Elon Musk dragging 214 redundant programs into daylight. Your taxes funding climate grants in Pakistan? Seriously? 3. Delete waste. Swamp creatures panic when accountability replaces their latte budgets. Liberals hate this because transparency ruins their grift. But you know who loves it? You, the folks tired of paying for race-based math failures and bureaucratic bloat. Here's where you come in. Smash that like button if you'd rather fund phonics than DEI tear fests. Share this clip. Tag a friend who's sick of the victimhood Olympics. Subscribe. You get to see we debunk more liberal lies. Question for you, what liberal talking point should we debunk next? DEI fairy tales, education lies, or swamp draining deep dives? Comment below.